Welcome back.
Welcome back, Master Chief. We missed you last week.
My most sincere apologies for the last minute cancellation, but big thank you to Jeff Bayless for stepping up and being the leader and the person that he is. Great stuff. So I am back. I am freshly moved into a new house in the great state of New Hampshire. So live free or die, right? And you are?
Yeah, we both actually. Funny thing is that we both have just recently moved into new homes for our families. So it's pretty exciting times right now. Exciting, stressful, all in one.
Exactly. So where's yours? Where's your house?
We are on top of a mountain in Frederick, Maryland.
Frederick, Maryland. We're the home of the Frederick Keys, minor league affiliation to the Baltimore Orioles, the greatest baseball franchise in the history of the major leagues.
Right. And I don't know what we're going to call our football team, but they're still playing. Washington.
That's the worst name in the history of names. Washington.
Go Washington.
Is it the football team or is it the football club? It's one of those two.
It's constantly changing.
It is. Oh, sad state of affairs. The Washington football team, or football players, or whatever they have named themselves. I got to tell you something. So today is September 11th.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reminiscing about September 11th, 2000, when I was on the mighty USS Way City, a guided cruiser missile, the most dangerous ship that's ever sailed the seven seas. Maybe a slight bias there on my part. But I remember that morning being underway, and I remember all the emotions that came with it. And since we were underway, we didn't get to necessarily feel the heartfelt patriotism that shortly followed a national tragedy like that. In some respects, I wish we could get back to some of that following a national tragedy. But, we didn't really get to witness that on the ship. And that was probably I wish I could have. I really wish that I had seen all the flags in the front yard, that I had seen communities bonding together and coming over a national tragedy like that. So I was doing some reminiscing, and then I thought to myself, I said, self, literally out loud, we have kids in the Navy, and I call them kids, and I always get in trouble. We have young men and women in the United States. We're not alive on September 1st, 2000. And then I really started thinking about music. And the music that we hear now and the music we were listening to 20 years ago or 19 years ago, in that time, the music would have been from the 80s. It would have been considered old music. So I was just putting in perspective of time and feelings and emotions, and a melody can bring back a memory and all that fun stuff. So September 11th, big day for this nation. And so I was just kind of putting it all together and working through the memories. And it was a little touching and a little heartfelt this morning. And I know a lot of our service members have felt that across the globe. So
absolutely. With something so just, I don't want to say like historic, nobody will ever forget where they were at that time. That's something like you just never forget, and you'll always remember so much in details of where you were, the sounds, the people, the emotions, the feelings at that time. So yeah, it's definitely a day to reflect.
100%. So the Vice Admiral is standing by backstage. The Chief of Navy Personnel. We have a surprise for him he does not know about. But I'm pretty sure his aides probably maybe snuck it in there, but we'll see.
Master, do you think when we play the video, the audio will work at the same time?
If we do what?
Play what we have, the video will work at the same time?
We will, but we got to jag it up first. So let's jag it up. Bells, whistles, likes, comments, shares, questions, do all that fun stuff. Keep it professional. So there's our jag statement. Over to you, DC1.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in with us. And please, because we are on Facebook and YouTube, we would absolutely love to know where you are viewing this podcast, the video live podcast from. So chime in and let us know where you're from, whether it's the state or if you're with Recruiting Command or any Navy command out there, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. But before we get started, please know that the views presented herein are within of those individual speakers and do not necessarily represent the official position of the DoD, the Department of the Navy, or any command or unit within the Navy. So there you have it. We are officially.
We are jagged up now. This is great. Now, so we can't be held liable for anything because we read that. That's what the JAG said. It's not really true.
No, we do it every time.
All right, so let's hide that now. So instead of playing the video, let's just. The Vice Admiral sitting there, he's a busy man. Let's go ahead and bring him in, and we'll go ahead and get started. So I did ask for him to wear NWUs, but he normally wears khakis. I'm going to tell you once I bring him in. So I'm going to bring him in. It's going to be boom. It's magical, like we always say. And ladies and gentlemen, the leadership within. This is Vice Admiral Nowell, the Chief of Naval Personnel. And there he is, like magic. Sir.
DC-1, thank you for the drum roll. Master Chief, I didn't realize I was supposed to wear NWUs, but I was just in a meeting with Assistant Secretary of the Navy and the Vice Chief, and I'm not allowed to wear NWUs at the Pentagon. Anyway, so I'm sorry about that.
Sir, the reason we were going to have you in NWUs is because you hold the world record for planking.
I hold the world record for planking for old C&Ps.
It just matters how you phrase the statement. There you go. So, no, that was a great video. I know a lot of the sailors really enjoyed it, and they love the comms that come from My Navy HR and from you and your team and your entire staff down there. And I know there's a lot of excited chiefs and senior chiefs out there waiting on Monday and Tuesday. So those will be interesting times as well.
Yeah, I know there are, and so many very deserving ones. Yeah.
So it definitely has been a trying time this year, not just with the board schedule and all that stuff, but really a lot of stuff around the United States Navy. And hopefully we'll be able to delve into that a little bit. But we know you are busy. So I know DC-1, do you have anything that you want to start with, maybe from the Admiral's past or some of those things that you were able to glean from his bio?
Yes, CNP, I noticed from your bio, we posted it up for our viewers and those who follow us on the Leadership Within podcast, but you have tours that span from the Atlantic to the Pacific Fleet to include forward deployed naval forces in Europe and Western Pacific. And out of all of the places and the commands that you've had the opportunity to work with, what would you say was your favorite?
I think if you ask, first of all, I've enjoyed and appreciated every place that I've been, every shipmate I've served with, and I tend to try and bloom where I go and enjoy where I'm at and try and make a difference. That said, I think any senior officer that wouldn't tell you that their 05 command, for me, it was actually the Master Chief had it a little bit wrong. The best warship in the Navy is USS Porter. But it was command of a guided missile destroyer. You were talking at the beginning about 9/11, and I had just left the Pentagon. I was at leadership school, so it's great that this is a leadership series. And I recall with my spouse, because it's 2 weeks a week, they would bring the spouses, male or female, in, and we were all together, and we were kind of in disbelief, right? There were even some folks who thought at first maybe it's a hoax that had happened, but it was really a little surreal, right? I think for all of us. But then I very shortly thereafter took command of the ship. We did workups. We deployed for OIF straight from Comp 2X, and so if you say what was your favorite tour, I've enjoyed every one of them. Being at sea for me has always been my favorite, even though I have a great family and I love them. My 34th anniversary coming up here on Monday, and I've moved that wonderful spouse who is a working school teacher 24 times, so she's a saint. But as much as I love my family, I did love being at sea, and I would tell you my first love was probably being on the bridge wing of USS Porter.
That's good.
24.
There's something about being underway on the bridge wing, especially later at night when the sun sets and you can see literally every star. You can feel the slight breeze. It is just very, I don't want to say cathartic or something along. It heals the soul. It just feels good to be out there. It's one of the most amazing feelings I've ever felt. I love being underway.
Yeah. Totally agree, Master Chief. Great question, DC1. No.
Thank you for answering that, sir.
She's the MVP, sir. So she keeps everything rolling and put together. So we do have a lot of people watching online. That is outstanding. Obviously, we'll be on Facebook and YouTube as always. And please, if you have questions, keep them professional as always. Like, share, subscribe, bells, whistles, booms, whatever you want to do to make sure that we know that the Admiral had a good point or things along those lines. We'll bring it up there. So, Admiral, with your approval, we'll go ahead and jump right into the questions.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You've had a long career in the United States Navy, and I already know the answer to this question, but I don't know the answer to the second part. And the question is, over the years, have you had to change your leadership style? And if yes, how and why?
So the answer is definitely yes. But I will tell you that the fundamentals of leadership across a career, I think there are some fundamentals that don't ever change, and you may do them a little bit differently. And I'll talk to you about what have I had to change though. But I'll also make the point that whether you're an E1 or you're an 09, we are all leaders, right? Now, the span of control, the scope of authority may change. But you know, I used to always tell my shipmates on Porter that we are only as strong as the most junior person on the ship, and we will all lead, and will lead in different ways, and that's really critical. So the fundamentals that I think don't ever change, and when I talk, Master Chief, to whether it is whether it's young junior officers getting ready to go out for their first tour, or whether it is, chiefs at Senior Enlisted Academy, or whether it's talking to our new sailors when I'm at Recruit Training Command, and I can't wait to get back there for a graduation once we get COVID licked, and we will. But the first thing that I talk to them about is, if you take care of your sailors, your shipmates, then they'll take care of you, right? It seems so simple, and that doesn't mean always being nice. What it means, because sometimes it's tough love, right? But but my view is that whether you're very senior or very junior, if you take care of the folks that work with and for you, then they're going to take care of you. Being a good listener, being a good communicator, I think working hard to know your job. And, that's really interesting, right? We all go, I mentioned that we've moved, 24 times. I have been in a long, long time. But it's not at all atypical for any sailor, officer or enlisted. When I say sailor, I mean officer and enlisted. That you're going to, every 2 to 3 years, sometimes more often, have to go to a place And it may be going into a job that you feel very comfortable with. There will still be more to learn. It may be going to a job where it's totally new, and so you're going to have to figure it out. But and people won't expect you to be the expert. They will expect you to work hard to learn the job. They will know if you're BSing them, right? I've never met a sailor yet that would fault me for asking, a question. And people always say, there are no stupid questions. In general, there's no stupid questions, right? We're always reticent, but they surely know if you're posturing, and if and if you're unwilling to actually ask someone who's pro from Dover. And in my experience, sometimes that is the most junior person in the room, right? And so I think having the self-confidence, regardless of whether you're the LPO or whether you're the chief of naval personnel, to say, I don't know that, or I need to know more about that. Here's my question for you. I think that is, I think that's a good thing. So, and there are a number. If we have time at the end of this, I'll kind of walk you through, and I think I may have gotten you guys a copy, and I'm happy for you to share it. But leadership from an old salt, that's really stood me in good stead throughout my career. Now, but have I had to change my leadership? Absolutely. And again, as you get a little bit more senior, whether it's being a master chief or a first class petty officer or a vice admiral, what I've found is that you really have to be careful as that scope of authority and responsibility grows. Then you really, what I've had to make sure of is that the leadership that worked as a commodore of a destroyer squadron or captain of a ship, as a strike group commander, right? It was more about delegation of authority. It was more about how do I clearly, using mission command, right? What do I need you to do? What do I want you to do? And then what do I expect? And here's some left and right limits. And then you do it. Tell me if you need help. I think that where senior leaders sometimes get themselves in trouble is that they're unwilling or unable to adapt that leadership style. And then typically what you see, and probably we've all been frustrated by it, and I would argue that many of us, despite this highfalutin rhetoric, I'm as guilty as others of sometimes at a more senior level micromanaging when I shouldn't. But I think the biggest lesson there is what works at one level doesn't necessarily work at the next, and then learning how do you delegate. How do you clearly get what the outfit needs to do out, and then to know what those touch points are. So, yeah, I'm going to trust, but I will trust but verify. And then, quite frankly, you very quickly figure out that you will have some subordinate commanders, right? And so, if you think about this, if you're a leading, if you're a leading chief, then you may have some work centers where these two, I don't have to worry about them at all. This one has a fairly new work center suit, probably need to pay more attention. And then the two over here, I'm watching, and I know when I need to swoop in and when I don't. So I guess what I would tell you is that being aware that leadership styles do need to change is probably very, very important. And my experience is that a little bit of that is learning more about yourself. And then it will be making a few mistakes and then self-correcting.
I think that's on point, sir. I tell the two senior chiefs that work for me all the time that different levels have different levels of leadership, have different requirements that you have to have and you have to portray. And you'll learn that. And like you said in the beginning, sometimes you're not really going to know what to do, but you have to be ready to learn and willing to learn, and more willing to listen probably in a lot of cases. So I think that's very poignant and right on. So DC1, do we have anything other than a bunch of people from all over the country so far?
Yes, so we have people tuning in from Duncan from Atlanta, people saying hello from Firebrant, Oregon. NCC1 says hello from Oceana, and Tag Magic City, San Diego, Camp Pendleton, Hooyah, born and raised. Yeah, so people agreeing exactly with what you're saying, whether it's the amount of times they had to have moved or being out at sea. But I do want to add on a little bit, CMP and Master Chief, that I'm listening, we're talking about delegation and we're talking about trust, but verify. I think one of the most challenging things, because, and I say this off of different experiences I have as a civilian, being a Navy reservist and being now active duty, and just life experience at the age that I am, is that there's a point where you also have to take a step back and know yourself, but know your people as well. And then that's just so challenging to think back, like, okay, when do I engage? When is it that time where I'm at that trust and verify? I gotta let it go. I just want to be helpful, in that delegation. But when do you know when it's that time to step in or to verify? So I completely agree with everything that you had mentioned, and I think that just goes with that experience and being in those positions.
Yeah, it goes with making some mistakes too.
I think we've all made mistakes. In fact, one of the leadership advice from the old salt, sir, is you will make mistakes, admit them, learn from them, but don't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah.
And I think the most frustrating thing for me as a leader is when we know somebody made a mistake and we're talking with them about it and they're denying it. And it's okay to make mistakes. We're human. Errors are going to happen. So that's probably the most frustrating thing I've seen in my career. And admit it, folks. It's easy.
Totally agree, Master Chief.
All right. So number 2, you brought up a lot of great stuff about leadership and how you've had to change. And we have the advice from the old salt. And so what is the single most challenging aspect of leadership that you've had to encounter in your life, sir?
Yeah. Some may go, well, yeah, that's a leadership challenge. Some others may be looking for something a little different or a little bit more specific. I will tell you, for me, the single most challenging area has been role modeling work-life balance. I am great talking about it. I'm pretty good at enforcing it with folks that work with me and for me. I'm not sure that I've always lived it enough and been a good role model for others. Although this is something that I've worked pretty actively at. I've had the help of my spouse, who encourages me to have a little bit more. But I think this idea of, when we talk about what do we need a warfighter to be these days, what do we need a leader to be? It's no different than when we first came in. Master Chief, I came in well before you. You came in well before DC-1. But this idea that if we are not resilient, you've heard us, or I hope most have heard us talk about warrior toughness and how we're now trying to build that at RTC, and we can talk more about that. But it is okay for a leader to say, in addition to taking care of my ship and my shipmates, I need to take care of myself, and that means taking the time to recharge my batteries, taking leave, eating healthily, working out. I'm saying all this because it's always difficult sometimes, depending upon what the scenario is, right? So look, I've been there, done that on a ship at sea during, a combat deployment where you're not getting enough sleep, where, I'm probably not eating as healthy as I should, where I'm not getting the exercise in. Sometimes that will be the case, but if that's the norm, then we won't have a leader in the fight for the long haul. And so I've been able to manage it well enough that I've lasted this long. And I know you were kidding me a little bit on the front end on the plank thing, but I'll tell you, so yeah, an old guy can do planks. But I think the point of what's the biggest leadership challenge you have, it really is, how do I set the example for that work-life balance? How do I build that in my team? But if they don't see me doing it, then it sounds great for me to say it, but they won't. And, I suspect folks watching, some will go, there will be some who probably think they have no work-life balance, and that's a problem. I guess what I would tell them is I think it's really important. We say it as a Navy, and I think that if we're going to talk the talk, we have to walk the walk. Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense. And I will say that's probably been my largest challenge. I never thought about it as a leadership challenge, like you said, but setting that example is an aspect of leadership, a very important aspect. So when you put the work-life balance in there, it makes a lot of sense. I'm like you, sir. I'm at fault with that just as well. And I think that we've always had that mindset that in order to find success, you have to work a lot, and you have to be the first one in, the last one out. And which always concerned me the most is as I stay at work, other people tend to stay at work. So I have to force myself out of the office.
Yeah.
And that has helped actually a lot with some of the sailors I have. It's 1800. I'm like, why are you still here? And they're like, well, you're still here. So I leave, and it's helped a lot. So, all right, outstanding. DC1, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I think we can tell that the sun went down a little bit of where you're at right now, because you look a little bit in the dark.
It's my tan. I got tan for the first time ever. So
yeah, it's in your entire room.
I don't know what to do because I can't really get up and change the stuff. So I'll just.
Sounds good. We'll rock and roll.
Yeah. All right. So the Navy has a lot of challenges. COVID has been tough, as you well know, sir. And we've just had a lot of challenges across the Navy. What do you think the biggest leadership challenges facing the Navy are right now and moving forward?
I will tell you that I think the biggest leadership challenge facing the Navy is, how do you manage change? How do you lead in an uncertain environment? And good gracious, COVID is certainly, at least at first, that was a pretty uncertain environment. I think for most of us, if we think back to world events where things happened that we didn't anticipate, we talked about 9/11, right? A pretty special day as we reflect here. But if you'd asked me prior to 9/11 what I thought I'd be doing a year later in command of a ship, it would have been different than what I was doing, which was shooting Tomahawk missiles, right? And so I think as I just look collectively, how we lead at every level, both through certainty, but more importantly, through uncertainty. How do you approach that? How do we approach it organizationally as a big Navy? How do we approach it on a ship or on a boat or in a squadron? You name in a mock, and then individually, how do we do that? And so, and I think that's one that as we look at great power competition, I think that at every level we need to think about how do we do that. It was interesting. I know a little bit later we'll perhaps talk about books. Ghost Fleet, which is if you're a DDG 1000 sailor, it's DDG 1000 Saves the World. By a guy named Pete Singer. But talk about uncertainty there, and it's a very interesting read on really primarily centered on enlisted sailors that adapted and overcame, and to some degree because they built themselves as continual learners. So how do you get after that big challenge? And it's by becoming a continual learner, because we are well past today the rate at which humans sort of can naturally evolve, the way we think and the pace of technological change. And that's why a lot of us and many in the nation are very uncomfortable with, where are we now? Some are more comfortable than others. So, and I like, Jeremy, your point on DDG 1000 plank owner saves the world. But at any rate, and I don't mean to ramble on here. I think it is how you do that, because it requires getting out of your comfort zone. It requires being willing to learn new skills. It requires always being eager to learn more. And so I think that is probably, as we look Navy large, the biggest challenge we've got is just that willingness to embrace it, to understand it, that you'll be uncomfortable with some of that. But it's really, as we look at the 21st century, in or out of the Navy, the folks, the organizations that will succeed are the ones that can adapt more quickly than the adversary.
I love what you said there, sir. You said one specific thing. They kind of wrapped it all up, and you said you're going to be uncomfortable in that zone. No growth happens in comfortability, or very little growth will happen when you're comfortable. That's physically or mentally. There's going to be some challenges that you're uncomfortable with, and you have to grasp that, accept it, and live with it. So I thought that was really poignant on your part, sir. That comfortability leading us through the unknowns is going to be vital. And you did talk about a book, the Ghost Fleet, P.W. Singer, August Cole.
Yep.
And DDG 1000 plank owner, as you saw, they are going to save the world. It's good stuff. I still think the Way City can take them, but that's yeah. No, maybe not. But so moving into the book, one of your things that you said as the and I do have this, and we'll put the plank on the leadership advice from the old salt up there. But one thing you put on here: if you're not a continual learner, become one. And it doesn't mean you just have to read. You can learn through experiences, through other people's shared experiences, things along those lines. But we always do ask that question about the book. So what would be a book that you would recommend for leadership, and kind of give us a brief synopsis, sir?
Okay. And I'm going to, you've now seen that I very rarely answer your question exactly directly, which I apologize for. But so, and I love reading, for different people, like, as you said, Master Chief, how you want to be a continual learner. I do podcasts. I do something called Blinkist, where it's sort of a synopsis of books, where I can, in 15 minutes, get the outline of a book in different things. How do you expand your aperture? But on leadership, and I tend to like biographies of leaders that, of both military leaders or others, where you kind of look for what are those traits that made them successful. But I would turn this a little bit to two series that I read, and I read them before I went to 05 Command. I'd read them earlier, and then I actually went back and reread them. One is, and you'll chuckle a little bit maybe, but it's the Hornblower series, right? So it's about Horatio Hornblower. I want to say there's maybe 4 books in the series, but it is really, and so it's about leadership in the age of sail, the Royal Navy, in 1800, right? But it all of the principles of good leadership then hold true now. And so I even used it for wardroom and chiefs, the chief mess training, where we would watch one of the videos, and NPR did like a series on them, and we would be sitting in the wardroom, and I'd watch the JOs, and they would start to self-identify themselves or shipmates with some of the characters. And, there were a few JOs that were not very good leaders, and they very quickly are like, dang, I think I'm like that guy a little. You could see the mental wheels turning, but it reinforced good leadership principles, some of which we've already talked about. And it reinforced it. In fact, we were, interestingly, we were watching that as part of wardroom leadership training when we got the order to shoot the first Tomahawks of shock and awe for OIF. And then the other one that I liked, and some saw the movie Master and Commander, but that's like a 22 volume, series that takes him from, being fairly junior to being, an Admiral of the Blue. But again, it's those fundamentals. And so for me, that was, it was kind of a very interesting and pleasurable way to reinforce that leadership knowledge. There's others. So I'm sorry that I'm not kind of giving you just one book title. My real recommendation is I hope folks are reading all kinds of book titles, and a good place to start is the CNO reading list and MCPON's reading list.
No, I agree. And I read anything from Greek mythology to historical fiction, to biographies. It's really interesting across the spectrum of what you can learn from and what you can glean from any topic or any type of book. And I don't know if I'll be able to read 22 volumes of Master and Commander, but I'll be able to listen to it on my lengthy drive into the great city of Boston. So
there you go.
We'll look at that. And the other one was Horatio Hornblower. So DC-1 usually puts the thing up, but I think she got knocked out by solar flares, maybe. I'm not sure. But she's back, so we're back and strong. All right, so that's good. And I agree with you. Just learn in whatever aspect you can, whether it's a podcast. Jeff Bayless does he's been on here a couple of times. He does a great podcast. Or anything you can find that's going to help you grow mentally, physically, spiritually, or whatever makes you a little bit better in your job, a little bit better as a human being. So I love quotes. I can't remember any of them, so I have to read them every time. But what we do ask all our guests is to share with us a quote that has meaning to them in regards to leadership and kind of what it means to them and how they came about it. Sir.
Yeah. So for me, I was the second operations officer on USS Arleigh Burke when it was the only DDG 51 on the waterfront. And Admiral and Mrs. Burke were still alive then, Admiral and Bobby. And we had a chance, we would celebrate their birthdays. And of course, for the destroyer force, for the Navy writ large, he's a hero. But certainly, as you look at destroyer men and women, he is someone who kind of stands out. And so one of his quotes was the difference between a good officer and a bad officer is about 10 seconds. You'll fight the way you train. And so whether you could replace the word officer with sailor, I would argue, with the point being that the reason that we need to train so hard is so that the muscle memory, the reflexes are there, and we instinctively know what to do when things are bad. And let me give you so that's my quote, Master Chief. I actually did give you a specific one.
You did,
but I saw it in action when I commanded Porter when we had crises that came up, and I would argue that we saw it with the Bonhomme Richard fire, where we saw 400 sailors who, some of whom are watching the news, right, at home, some of whom are on their ship, regardless, where they saw black smoke rising, and they immediately started heading toward a ship that was in distress. That is good training, and what CNO saw when he talked to some of them and talked to the federal firefighters was, wow, they were in awe of what our sailors did fighting that fire in 1,200 degree temperatures. And that's because they had good training, and they had practiced, and they knew what they were going to do. So that's a quote that I believe in, and I think you can apply it in a lot of different ways in a lot of different places.
So that is on your leadership advice from an old salt, which is outstanding. And the thing that amazing about the leadership advice from the old salt is that you refer to this in almost every single aspect. You have referred to that in just your casual conversation, which means it's true and genuine to you as a person and as a leader in the United States Navy. And that's very important. So, and you got to meet Arleigh Burke, which is pretty cool in and of itself. Like, I didn't get to meet Arleigh Burke.
So I'll tell you real quick, because I'm sure people, want to kind of, they want this to be really interesting, and I hope that we're making it interesting.
Oh, very interesting.
We went to celebrate Arleigh Burke, Admiral Arleigh Burke's birthday. And I forget which birthday it was, but we got there. I was a lieutenant, and I'm leading the ship delegation to DC to the retirement home. We brought a birthday cake, and we had a ceremony where we brought a sword, as sort of a prop for the ceremony. I think he was actually going to commission one of our chiefs to LDO. It was going to be pretty cool. Anyway, long story short, we had the birthday cake for him, and the retirement home did not have a knife, there to cut the cake, if you can believe that. And that fairly quickly became obvious to Admiral Burke. And so, so I grabbed the sword, unsheathed it, and we used the sword to cut the cake. And Arleigh Burke said to me, "Lieutenant, I don't know whether that was planned or not, but that was a pretty fast reaction." So that was 10 seconds in operation.
There you go. Okay, they're back to the quote. Perfect. No, that is outstanding. I tell you, I love to sit down and talk to people and hear their stories, and I'm sure Arleigh Burke was full of them. And that's another thing that we can learn from when we talked about kind of just growing and developing and becoming a continuous learner, is talking with and speaking with people, and just finding out a little bit about their story, because you never know what you're going to find out. You're never going to hear the great anecdotes from history or who they ran into and the lessons they've learned in life. So I like that. That was a good story. So you impressed Admiral Burke. And here you go.
Well, I as I told my wife when I got home, I don't know whether he meant that, as praise, or it was something of an admonishment. And she said, "Just take it as praise, honey."
Well, you're the C&P, so I think he may have had a hand in that. He may have helped guide you a little bit.
Yeah.
Outstanding. So what we do now is I'm going to DC1 and I will back up, and we're going to just put you on the big screen, kind of like the videos that you do with my Navy HR. And if you don't want us to leave, we can stay here, because CMC a couple ones back didn't want to be by yourself. So we'll stay with you if you need it. But this is going to be open mic for your advice to the listeners out there. So we can back out or we can stay here with you. It's your call. But it's really whatever you want to talk to the audience about, sir.
I'm comfortable either way that you'd like to do it, Master Chief. So I think again, I really appreciate the opportunity to join you. I appreciate the folks that have tuned in here, because I know things are always busy. I do think that I feel blessed with the shipmates that I've had throughout my career. And so we've talked about it a little bit, but this going back to how do you want to lead your life? How do you want to live your career? And the Navy is much more than a career, right? I mean, it is a life. And so for me, whether I was in command or whether I was a divo or department head, or more senior, it really kind of came down to shipmate, sell, and it wasn't necessarily, it is in that order because I think it needs to be. And I did chuckle a little bit because on Porter, that was something we really stressed, and I was doing a PMS spot check, and above the workbench, which was flawless with respect to electrical safety, there was this sign, and it said ship in huge letters, and then shipmate in smaller letters, and then self was like in baby bear letters. And I said, okay, look, you got the motto right, and you got the order right. You got the size a little bit wrong. So, but this idea of taking care of each other, never more important than in COVID. And it is noteworthy that this is Suicide Prevention Month. And so probably many of us on the line have, as leaders and as people, many of us have been affected by suicides, whether in our family, whether with shipmates. Some you may have known very well, some not. Everyone a tragedy, and so taking care of each other. I think that's one of the biggest ones. And I find that if you are doing that, if you're working hard, and if you try to keep learning, quite frankly, things are going to work out. They really will. So for me, it's been incredible. I know, I go to speak at commissioning ceremonies, and the ensigns chuckle a little bit when I say I'd start all over again right now. But I would start all over again right now. And so I hope that all the folks that are listening, if you're tuning into a leadership forum, that you have that kind of passion, and hopefully that energizes you as much as it's energized me. So sailors, and what can I do to do a better job for them, to make the Navy a better place, to make the Navy more lethal? Warfighting readiness starts with people. And so how we lead, how we develop as leaders is just critical. So I'm sure, Master Chief, I could wax eloquently much longer, but viewers might get more out of if you want me to take some questions. I'd be happy to do that too, on whatever topic they've got, or however you and DC1 want to do it.
Okay, understanding, sir. So I do agree with you with the mental health aspect, and we've seen that rise in rates, not just obviously in the United States Navy through this COVID and the quarantine time, but it's been across the United States, and it affects our family members, from our parents, children, brothers and sisters, or just friends in the community. Social interaction with human beings is really a vital thing for the brain and mental health. And the more you lose that, the more likely you are to make destructive decisions, and then maybe go into depression. Once you get into depression, it's not too hard to go into the bottom of a bottle, or to drugs or anything else to help try to give you that temporary high. And we need to be very cognizant of that, not just with our friends, our family, but with ourselves.
And it's always okay to ask for help. It's always okay to ask for help.
100% Military One source is there. All you got to do is call them. And it's like 10 free things you can do it. Video, phone call, go to your local provider, call a friend. A couple shows back, I think DC1, we asked everybody to call a couple friends. So let's put that challenge out there today. Just pick one person and call them. One person you haven't spoken to in a while, just call them and see how they're doing, and make sure that they're okay. We don't have any questions on there, but I do have one question for you, sir. is I've always wondered this in my life from the CMP. So you sign off on the chief and senior chief, master chief, when the boards are done, correct, sir?
Yes.
So here's what I've always envisioned, and just you can tell me if my vision is wrong or right. Like I envision the captain that's in charge of the board walking in with a red folder and just a list, and he hands it to you. I'm sure that's not the way it works. So in the verification or the vetting process, how much of that do you actually do? Or is it just a bunch of kind of like reports that come to you and you kind of look at everything and captain says this and captain says that, and all right, you've checked A, B, C, everything's checked, and then you sign.
Yeah. It's so from the standpoint of the vet, I mean, first of all, it's a board process, and best and fully qualified. We'll probably never be able to promote as many deserving sailors to chief, senior chief, master chief. But I think, and every now and then the board gets it wrong, but most times not. So frankly, what comes to me, I don't second guess the board process because we put the right folks on those boards. We give them the right guidance with the precepts and convening orders. That's done at a very high level. But so yes, I do get the list of the names, and then there are some things that if there is some kind of a disciplinary or legal action that then comes up afterwards, then yeah, I do get that, and every now and then there's a discussion as we look at that on what is the right, what's the right path. But yeah, it's again, when you look at the process by which we select folks to put on khaki in the Chief's Mess, and DC-1, I can't wait to see your name on that list. But it's I think most folks should be proud of that.
Very good.
Yes.
DC-1, I know we have a question now.
We do. So Petty Officer Rosados asked, what is one mistake you witness leaders making more frequently than others?
Micromanagement. Yeah, no doubt about it. There are plenty of mistakes that are made, and I make plenty of mistakes. But I do think at almost any level, the trick is where and there are some things that you need to micromanage, right? And at a more junior level, you probably need to be doing more micromanagement than what I'm doing. And then, but there are some things, even as a 3-star admiral, that I micromanage because it's so critical, or quite frankly, because we've not gotten it quite right. But in most cases, I find that it's very hard for leaders at every level to sometimes not micromanage when they shouldn't. And when we do that, quite frankly, it drives really good leaders to be frustrated, to not have the kind of job satisfaction, right? Nobody wants to work for a micromanager. Yet, why do you need me if you're going to micromanage it? Go ahead and grab somebody off the street because you don't need me as skilled labor here. That would probably be my first my first response.
Thank you, CMP. So I have another question that came in. Let's check it out. Pull it up here so you can see and read it as well. Chief Coates, I'm sorry I pronounced that name incorrectly, but says IRT Sailor 2025 and E-Sailor Initiative. Has there been any process into getting a smart device in every sailor's hands? We haven't heard anything since the pilot tablets at RTC. Yeah.
So a couple things. One, Chief, thank you for that. Thanks also for what you're doing at NIWIC. And so we did do a pilot where we gave each sailor a tablet, and quite frankly, at the time, it became too hard, and so we moved away from that. But that does not mean that as we look in Sailor 2025, I hope that everybody listening is kind of familiar with that. That's how we are transforming, talent management in the 21st century, how we're modernizing the personnel system, how we're building continual learners, ready, relevant learning, and then how we're building career readiness, for both our sailors and their families. And so, this tablet was designed to help both across kind of building continual learners as well as what could we do to help you continue to evolve. Now, we're right now getting ready to pilot something called PAL 3, which is a personal assistant for lifelong learning. And so in reality, it is going to be a tablet, and it will be sort of an intelligent tutor, and it'll be something that where you and some of us use these kinds of things now, right, on our iPhones or our Androids. The apps are out there to help you with it. But in this case, it would be a device with the right infrastructure that you could use to manage continual learning with either courses that are online. As we bring the Naval Community College online, you could use that. You'll use it to track certifications, qualifications. It'll remind you, when wickets are coming up for that. And then it could also help with things like diet and fitness. But let me turn this a little bit to tell you that Fleet Koschhofer, who's the best Fleet Command Master Chief ever, here in the N1. So Fleet will always say there's an app for everything. There's an app for that. And so one of the ways that we've been trying to give sailors better service delivery is by moving things to apps where you're using whatever device you want to use. Do you like an Android, or do you like a Galaxy, or do you like an iPhone better? Do you like using a tablet? Do you want to use your desktop computer? I don't care, but I know that we all do almost everything in our personal lives via an app. And so, we've got the My Navy Family app, totally unclassed, and you can find almost anything. You mentioned Military OneSource, Master Chief. So there's a link to Military OneSource on there. As part of COVID, we put more mental health counseling, aids into My Navy Family, so to help folks out. My PCS Mobile, right? My Navy Record, My Navy Portal. So what I'd ask folks to do is, and it's there, you can Google it, but that, to be quite frank, that is sort of the path we're on right now, which is you use the device of your choice. And I do get it that some might say, well, not every sailor that comes in is going to have an iPhone or a tablet. I got to tell you, I see few sailors, if they're not on a ship or a boat, where they're not have it out and they're using it. I've seen few that don't have one in their pocket or in their hand, otherwise. So.
Thank you, CNP. You're absolutely right.
I hope that answered the Chief's question. Yeah.
Did.
I think what he wants is a free iPad. I'm going to call him. He's just trying to get the free iPad.
Don't we all? Yeah. Okay. What values are most important?
And this will be the last one.
Yeah, that's really easy for me. Character and integrity. That's what's most important to me as a leader. If you have character and integrity, then I can develop you, and we can develop together. But if you don't have character and integrity, then I want you out of my Navy.
Pretty simple. And I would agree that we can teach a lot of people to do a lot of different jobs. There's a lot of flexibility in the Navy, but character and integrity are highly, highly valuable and important to make sure that we get the mission done. So CMP, we know you're a busy man. You're out there. You're going to do great things. As always, you probably have a meeting with the CNO, followed by the SecDep or something here coming up shortly. So we do appreciate you, and thank you so much for coming on our little video podcast thing, the leadership within. We could not be more appreciative.
Yes. Thank you, CMP.
Yeah. Hey, guys, let me just tell you, though, thank you for your leadership, for both of your leadership as you're doing this. It says a lot about you. Goes without saying that I'm happy that you're in the My Navy HR family. But it's really, really important to have these kinds of discussions, and we don't take enough time to do that. So appreciate the opportunity, and this has been much more fun than a meeting with the CNO.
I won't tell him you said it. We'll block him from Facebook.
Yeah, please don't. Please don't.
No,
all right. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
one. Wow, DC one. That was
big time.
I know. I will say this. I told him this on the thing, and I meant it. The leadership advice from the old salt that he sent us. I'll find a way to get it up there.
Yeah.
Our thing. It's taking care of your people. You're not expected to be an expert. We talked about Arleigh Burke, a good listener, communicate, interest in your sailors, good and bad leaders, learn from everybody, be a continual learner. Everything that he was talking about is here, so that means it's true to him. So I hope everybody enjoyed the show with the CMP today. I will say this, and I know that you've got this question before. How do we get these people, right? Like, how does Mike Rodney and Veronica Scott get the CMP and the MCPOD and April Beldo and all these people, right? It's simple. We ask. I mean, that's it. We ask.
Yes, that's all you have to do. And anything you want ever in life,
just ask.
That's it. That's all you got to do. And you've heard before, what's the worst anybody can say?
No.
It's okay.
We've been told.
And then when you get no, it doesn't mean no forever, right? It just means maybe no right now.
Right. We're going to re-engage with some of the people that told us no.
Yeah, we'll be back.
We'll be back. Oh, wow. I forgot to set the hook for later in the show. Forgot to set the hook. But we're at the end of the show. We're at the end of the show. We have our 2 cents. We forgot to mention that. I was rusty because I was gone so long during the move. So I had the move, and I had the last minute work tasker that I had to take care of. So I was gone for what seems like an eternity. So it was rusty. I apologize. Please forgive me for my
eternity, aka 1 week. But go on.
2 weeks. Practice, repetition, muscle memory, mind memory, muscle, mind memory, muscles, or something. Muscles. Anyways, plankings. CMP, 28-minute plank.
The video was hilarious, though. If y'all have not seen go to Facebook, My Navy HR, and watch some of those videos and click on those alerts. Also, I'll throw in a plug for CMP and his team out there, because some of them they're just funny, as well as getting the information, the vital information out there to everybody. Right? He's out there going. Somebody's doing a countdown from like the timer from while he's planking, and he's like 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 7 minutes. Like, all right, 7-minute plank.
It is funny, and actually, they're very good communicators up there at My Navy HR now, and I'm glad to see them moving into the digital age. And I forget who it was. It might have been Jeff Bayless talking about nobody reads a message. I mean, I'm sorry, but I read them because I have to. But there's not many E3s out there reading naval messages. They'd much rather get their information quick, easy, My Navy HR, stuff like that. So video clip. Twitter was 120 characters or less. Now it's like 2 or maybe 244. I make stuff up half the time. But it was a great show. He was really good. He was really, really good. And that's exactly how I expected him to be. I apologize for my previous darkness. I just moved here. I didn't realize the sun was going to set behind me. And then
Don't let the sun
I
come
know,
down on me.
yeah. So I'm going to get a light, like you have told me, and I will have my American flag hanging up here to block this. I couldn't find it. I was scrambling before, looking through boxes, could not find my American flag. I am saddened today. So, ITSNs read messages. Yes, they do, Jared. ITSNs read messages. Yes, they do.
And thanks for your question, Chief. And Lieutenant Sams, thank you for joining us. And Rosado, thank you for always asking these great questions. And your Chief Curry, Levy, appreciate y'all.
Yeah, that's great. So, are you ready for your 2 cents?
I am. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, let's do it.
You want to go first? Or you want me to go first? Up to you. Ladies first.
I would love to go first. So here we go. So we are moving yesterday, today. Movies are here. I think they're just finishing up. So I'm over here in a different part of the house, right? But as I was coming up to the side of the house, and I just want to put this out there to start off with, if you're going to talk about anybody, just make sure that when you do, that it's something that you feel comfortable with saying to their face. Okay? Nothing really bad, but I thought it was funny when I was coming up the side of the house and I could hear the movers talking with this guy who's hired third party in to uncrate our TVs and everything. We have a lot of TVs and they're all crated up. And the mover says to him, because they don't know each other, and he says, "Man, what's all on those crates?" And the guy says, "TVs." And he goes, "How many freaking TVs these people need?" And he goes, "I know, right?" He's got a huge TV here and there, and they're going on and on, back and forth, right? And I'm coming up behind him, and then he goes, "Dang, who needs that many TVs?" And then I come into the garage to the side of the house, and I look at both of them, and they look at me like, and I said, "I know, right? Somebody go tell that man up there, my husband." And they started laughing. It wasn't a big deal to me, but I'm just saying that could have been pretty bad, right? So if you're going to talk about anybody, just be comfortable and be aware of. Just know, like, if you're going to say something about somebody, you can say it to their face too, right?
Lieutenant Sam says, "Hot mic." You get it all the time, especially on these Zoom calls. Like, I can't believe you. No. That is a good one, and we've probably all made that mistake, in all honesty.
Yes, you're right.
Made that mistake.
It's just funny and more comfortable when it's on the other end.
Yes. So I will tell you, and oddly enough, mine had to do about moving as well, since this is a shared life experience you and I are going through right now. So I am cheap.
Frugal.
So frugal, better word. I was like, oh, I will rent the U-Haul. I'll pay some guys to do the heavy lifting. I'll do the boxes, right? Which really, that's not the problem. The problem was the guys I hired, right? So they were slow. Let's just put it that way. And you only have so much time, so you pay these guys by the hour. I should have paid them by the piece of furniture they moved. It took forever. I had to make 3 trips in a 26-foot U-Haul. Now that you may think I have like a 5,200 square foot house. I do not. But I was so frustrated with the lack of customer service, not just from the actions and the way they did things. So I would say this to everybody. As a leader, your job is customer. Ooh, I hit my pop filter. Your job as a leader is customer service. Your job is to make sure that those sailors are taken care of. So I would remember as a leader that your job is to take care of people. You have to provide them great customer service. Because if you start not giving them great customer service, and it's going to kind of go back to the point of when people stop coming to you with the problems, you've lost it, right? And if you're not providing them good customer service, if you're not listening to them, if you're not taking their opinions into account, and I think the Admiral even hit on that a little bit with the E1 to the 09. It doesn't matter. Be a good listener. So that's my 1 cent for the day is listen, be a good customer service agent, if you will, 4-year sailors. Because I know with me, and I'm the type of guy that gets on the phone and I'm like, representative, and I because I get so frustrated after 30 minutes of pushing buttons.
You just want his 0.
It's what I tried it. They've caught on to us.
And if they ask you, do you want to fill out a survey at the end? Press 1. Press 1 because you'll get a little bit faster service.
Yes, but then you don't do the survey.
They don't know that.
I know. Don't let me figure it out. Nadia Mary Finner, one of the movers, quit in the middle of unloading the truck.
I had one do that to me too. He said, hey, do you want me to go ahead and unload the clothes on the bed? And I said, that would be great. And I go upstairs to the room and all of my daughter's knickknacks from all the moves that we've had in snow globe collections, a couple of them were broken on the floor. And I was like, what are you doing? You said clothes. And he goes, so you don't want me to unload the box? I was like, no. And he's like, F this. And he went back and waited in the car, in the truck.
Wow.
And then at the end, they said, so y'all gonna leave us a tip? Oh, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Your customer service, homie. That's your tip.
Yeah, I will say that this time around, this move has been great. We've been blessed with great, respectful, nice, thoughtful, kind movers. So.
Well, that's good. That's good. It is a stressful time. So we have a show next week. This was the hook we should have said. Get a big show in 2 weeks too. We have our next 2 guests lined up.
Yes.
Friend like ever, I think.
All right. You ready to are you going to announce it?
So yes, we will start we don't want to trump our next week's show because this guy is awesome. In my opinion. Never met him, never spoke with him, but I see what he does. I mean, we've communicated via email and different mediums like that, but I've never actually spoken with him. But what I see that he does on social media and how he cares about his employees and the people that work in his company is really amazing. His name is Joshua Broder, Broder. He is the CEO and owner of a company called Tilson, and they do this wireless thing. Anyways, they're connecting America through wireless stuff. It's a company based out of Portland, Maine, and he's prior Army. I don't know. I think he got out as a captain, but that will be next Friday at 1500. And now he's huge into SkillBridge. He's huge into veterans. He's huge into his employees, and it looks like he really wants to. What I see is it really looks like he wants to help make a difference in the world and bring this wireless communication to areas that don't normally have it. So, but we'll let him talk a little bit more about what the mission and the vision is of Tilson. So really excited for that. And when we started this show, DC1, one of the things we talked about was leadership, civilian military.
Right.
We've been able to bring you a couple of civilians. This will be another one in the great line of civilians. And then the one after the CNP, military-wise, you have to wait and see next week. Hook. You have to wait next week. Hook. Got to come back.
Very exciting. So when you say connecting people with wireless communication, are we talking about, and I was going to ask you this before, but the poles with
yes,
that look like trees sometimes?
Look, if he's got the special, you can ask him all about it. But yes, it's the poles with the panels and electrodes shooting out and all that fun stuff.
I need one on no, not my property. Never mind. Okay.
No, I'm going to ask him to put one outside my house out here in New Hampshire.
I'm like, come on.
So, but it is interesting, and so we'll look it up and we'll see it with Josh Broder next week, 1500 on the Leadership Within. We will be better. I'll be back in flow. I do have some visitors coming in from NRC, so I got to get their schedule. But if I can't do it, then
I mean, if we can check with Mr. Broder and see if we can push the time if we need to. Maybe an hour up.
We'll see. Yes, that's it. So as soon as I get that, we will let you guys know. So look for that Monday on your Facebooks and your YouTubes.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope you have an amazing weekend. Be safe. Lead with love. Any last words, Master Chief?
It's really great. Love you guys, and we're done. And with that,